Well, ladies and gentlemen, at this point we've gotten to Part C, the CPV Toolkit Manual, which includes the CPV Toolkit components and the use of the toolkit itself for our CPVs. Now here's a table of contents in regards to navigating the CPV Toolkit, which is extraordinarily important for our students to understand, or our college positive volunteers to understand, how to utilize this guide in a manner that's most effective for them and appropriate for them. So in the contents we have Section 1, before you volunteer, 2, elementary school, the 3rd, middle school, 4th, high school, 5, ways to pay for college, 6, additional resources, 7, glossary of terms, and 8, the appendix. So before you volunteer in the manual, you have understanding all students being inclusive in your college access efforts. So here we're referring to alternative education, at-risk students, behaviors and what to expect with students, approaches to help connect with students. Now, I'm going over this with you in a manner that is inclusive, but the manual itself is far more in-depth. And this is what you want to give your CPVs. Now, it's extraordinarily important because when your CPVs are out in the field, they're not going to have you as a resource right then and there. And that's why this manual is so important that they actually take the time to go over. And as they go over this, they can continue to refer to it in order to remain relevant and effective when working with students. So when we talk about alternative education, we really include this as a part of K through 12. It's seldom talked about, but this is a K through 12 system when we talk about alternative education. At-risk students is something I've stressed throughout the training, and this is something that our students must keep in mind as well, that students can be recognized as at risk of dropping out of school. And the manual will also offer approaches to help connect with students that are more in-depth when they're on their own. Frequently asked questions, which includes student-asked questions, facts about college, facts about potential personal and public benefits of having a post-secondary education. All of these things are found within the manual, and they're quite informative and helpful. We don't know what we don't know, being another section within the manual, which covers terminology about college that many first-generation students don't know, and descriptions of how to explain college terms and characteristics to youth. No talking points about your college. General institutional information, which includes statistics, demographics, extracurriculars, campus living, which includes dorm living, leisure activities, organizations, service, fitness, institution requirements, application logistics and facts, how to apply, application fee, area of study, etc., and other shareable information. Now this is something that you really want your students to tap into. Your CPVs, again, being college students themselves, are very well aware of this type of information. And this is what they want to share from a very personal standpoint with the students that they're serving. This will really resonate with the students because our CPVs know this firsthand. They know this general information. But I do want to stress this. As a trainer, don't take for granted the things you know as well because your CPVs may not know that. So you want to also introduce things about your university or community college or institution that some people may not even know. As a former university professor, although I was immersed in the university with many different projects and much different work, I still didn't know all the different services that we offered as an institution. So please do a little research and you'll dig up a whole lot of things that perhaps even you didn't know, but will be very informative for your CPVs and the students. Now, CPV activities by student group. Now this was broken up by sections based on elementary school, middle school, and high school. So here, for example, we have number 2, elementary school, which is pages 20 to 33, which has college preparatory checklists, activities, reading materials. Each one of these is specific to the grade levels. And they'll range in terms of sometimes we'll have some overlap from time to time, but very much so important for each CPV to focus on the section that's relevant to them. In the 3rd section, we have middle school, pages 34 to 44. We have college preparatory checklists, activities, reading materials, and that'll be relevant to middle schoolers. And in section 4, we have high school, pages 45 to 59. Again, college preparatory checklist, activities, reading materials, all about the SAT and ACT. You see here very specific to high school. Now, I will say for reading materials, what we included in the manual was readings for reluctant readers, to really help students that find it difficult to read, who are scared to read, struggle to read, to really find things that are engaging, that they're going to enjoy reading, to help them begin to develop that confidence and understanding when they do their reading. So it's important CPVs go over this reading material so they understand what to use when working with students who struggle to read, which is very common for a lot of the students that we will be serving. CPV activities by length of service. Now this is an example of the different types of activities that CPVs can be involved with, and you'll see how diverse they are. So for example, we have event-based activity, which is a limited time interaction, maybe one-day event, a week-long camp, etc. So an example would be, what do you want to be when you grow up? That can be a very simple, straightforward, yet powerful thing for a group of elementary students or even middle schoolers, where you have a 1-hour session with the students and it's a one-day event and that's it. That would count as an event-based activity. Then we have short-term activity, which is longer than an event, and it's 12 to 15 weeks, a semester long, or several months. An example of that would be college fair attendance. So for example, a CPV would take the time to find different college fairs that the students could attend, so perhaps attend maybe 5 or 6 different college fairs throughout the course of 1 week, 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks, and they would meet the students at the college fairs and really help them become immersed in what's being taught, what's being shared, and have them walk away with a better understanding of what's being offered through these different college fairs. An extended term activity is a longer term commitment. It's 6 months, a year, or even longer. An example here would be peer tutoring groups, or maybe even individual tutoring itself, where a CPV would have the opportunity to work with 1 or more students over the course of an entire semester to make sure they're helping them with their work, with whatever else they need assistance with, and whatever they feel will really help the student improve academically or anything else that they've deemed fit for that school between the student and the CPV. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. Suggested activities can be modified. You can use a middle school activity for elementary school. I want you to make sure that you're stressing to your CPVs to remain creative. That's something we definitely want to do. We don't want to stifle their creativity. So if they feel the need to switch something up or make it a bit more encompassing or tweak it a bit, please tell them to feel comfortable and encourage them to do that if they feel it's necessary. Ways to pay for college. Well, here we have family personal savings, scholarships, grants, college work-study programs, working and paying as you go. This is all in depth within the manual. And the FAFSA, as I mentioned before, is federal and state financial aid, state and federal loans, and private loans as well. And this is something that CPVs have to take the time to go over with the students. Additional resources. In this case, we go to page 69 and 70, and it has these resources that go over before they visit a college campus, during the visit, financial aid, admissions, departments, all these different things while they're touring a campus to really make sure that students don't just go to a university to take a tour, but really become immersed at the university so they really get an understanding and a feel what they're being involved with so they can really see themselves being at that university. And we know through research that high school students and middle school students that have an opportunity to go to a college campus are really far more likely to move on to go and attend a college or university. So this is something that if we have the opportunity to do, CPVs must be a critical point in making sure that the students experience this in a manner that's not only fun, but empowering. When they walk away, they can really feel themselves being a part of a university or community college culture. Online scavenger hunt. In this case, I have an example here for Michigan colleges, but you can easily adapt this by using the internet to search any other university or community college that you see fit, and you would find this in page 71 to 73. And again, feel free to adjust as necessary. K through 12 self-inventory, possible career paths. That's an example of something that's in the manual. It's in pages 75 to 81. It offers different careers that students can look at and really choose from. And again, this is meant to be as informative as possible, but it's not the end-all, be-all, most encompassing thing. So always feel free to introduce other information that will really be relevant to the students. Overview of internet resources, pages 82 to 85. It has a lot of different links that you can click on, and you can go directly to the websites. And this is something that we're continually working on to make sure we're keeping updated as well. Glossary of Terms in pages 86 to 89 has a variety of definitions to different things that have been used throughout the entire manual. In section 8, the appendix, it has sample college applications and sample FAFSA, which is very important for students to become familiar with. And really, you can use the manual to help students fill out these applications and fill out these forms so they really get an understanding of how to do it, and they can keep it as a resource for the day that they're ready to have their parents help them to fill out these forms. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gotten to the end of the training now, and what I'd like to do is open up the floor to see if there's any questions that you'd like to ask in order for me to answer them, to make this something that's useful for you in regards to when you go and conduct your own training. So are there any questions? Yes, sir.
What is the best way to empower a discouraged CPV?
That's a really good question. So what's the best way to empower a discouraged CPV? And that's something that's very common, because you have to remember when our CPVs are going out into the field, they're actually beginning to interact with students. And not all students are going to be receptive to our CPVs firsthand. So this is something you have to get across to your CPVs, that it's perfectly normal, and to accept this and not feel defeated, that it's a process to gain the trust and make the connections with the students that they're going to work with. So if you're not successful the first day, guess what? Maybe the next week, the second week, the third week, when it comes to working with students, it's going to take a while to really be able to connect with them. And in some cases, some of your CPVs are going to be able to connect immediately, so they won't feel discouraged. And that's why they have each other. You see, we serve as a resource for one another. So the CPVs can help each other out as well. For those who are more successful than others, well, that's why we have each other to come back as a group, maybe meet once a month or whatever you see fit, in order to share these stories to help each other out. But discouraged CPVs is definitely common, and patience, persistence, and professionalism is really what we want them to be able to do. So are there any other questions? Miss, what's your question?
How can CPV training be used in everyday life?
That's a really good question. How can CPV training be used in everyday life? One thing I want to make sure everyone understands when you're working with your CPVs, becoming a CPV isn't simply a job or something you do. Becoming a CPV really truly is a lifestyle. It's so much larger than all of us. So this is an opportunity to transform lives. So in everyday life, what they have to keep in mind is that they are representatives of something much larger than themselves. So they represent their university, they represent the different institutions they work with, they represent exactly what it is that they're trying to instill in the students that they're working with. So they need to become and feel comfortable becoming leaders. And within that, that's how they're going to live their everyday lives. Becoming a college positive volunteer means becoming an agent of change, a leader who can effectively help empower other people. So it's a lifestyle. Any other questions? Yes, Miss.
How are CPVs commonly recruited?
How are CPVs commonly recruited? Well, there's no wrong answer. I mean, that's the beauty of this, is that within our institutions, there's so many different ways to recruit CPVs, perhaps through the volunteer center, perhaps through a professor, perhaps through an established program already. I mean, there's so many different ways to recruit CPVs. What I will stress is that when you're trying to identify CPVs, you want people who are empathetic, who are passionate, who can connect with others. That's what you're looking for. We're looking for these students who really want to go above and beyond when working with the students that we're going to serve. So there's no wrong way to go about recruiting volunteers to become CPVs. Sir, you had a question?
Yes. How long will it take prospective CPVs to utilize these methods?
How long will it take prospective CPVs to utilize these methods? Well, there's no right way in terms of length of time. Really, when you're training your CPVs, in some cases I've been involved in trainings where it took an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. Really, what you don't want to do is, if you're feeling a flow with the audience that you're working with in regards to your CPVs, you really want to ride that momentum. But you also don't want to bore your audience to a point where they're disengaged and they're not connected. So really, I'm going to put this on you and say, trust your judgment, trust your gut, you have the structure, and accommodate it as needed. So don't feel like you didn't do enough if it was an hour and a half. So don't force it to be more if it's something that you were able to do succinctly and powerfully within a short amount of time. But ultimately, you want to cover everything it is that we went over and anything you feel is additionally needed. Miss, you had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you've been able to find a way to stay professional and maintain that authentic personality.
So how to stay professional while maintaining an authentic stance or personality? Well, it goes hand in hand. See, CPVs are expected to be authentic in themselves, but they are professionals in the standpoint that we're training them to be CPVs. So it's a balance. It's a matter of making sure CPVs understand that they will not cross certain lines and that they will remain professional. Yet, being professional does not mean you can't be authentic. So as we tell students or our CPVs to be authentic, that professional development will be there and we will help guide them throughout that professional development. So it's a process that will take time and that we're constantly helping students evolve into becoming those professionals that we need in order to really make an impact on the students we're serving. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point we've gotten to the end of our training. The resources that I've gone over, from the College Positive Volunteer Manual, the different activities, the PowerPoint you will use to train your CPVs, and other resources are found in the following website. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to keep in mind when you go through this training with your CPVs isn't simply that it's a formal training, but really what you're doing is empowering a group of people to be agents of change. You have the opportunity to give them the tools and the resources they need to help transform the lives of our K-12 youth. That's a very powerful position to be in, and it gives us a unique opportunity to truly combine the resources we have through our social capital, our human capital, and so many other things that we can offer to a group of students who are truly college material, yet in some cases may not see themselves that way. we have an opportunity to truly make impactful and effective change within our society through the different college positive volunteers we will have. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming here today, and I look forward to hearing the stories and success stories that you have with your CPVs.